All right. So I watched another one of these, the one show, and it seems like these guys are getting there. They are finally seeing the light, but still, they made a lot of comments that I don't know. To me, it's obvious, like what errors in reasoning you are making, and but uh, let's just watch the first one.
And I think, I mean, if my experience is anything to go by, you might be surprised. Your stuff might work just fine because even your game might have anti cheat, and it might just not be kernel level and thus be fine. Like there is a lot of anti cheat stuff that works on Linux. It's fine.
I don't know why this is surprising. Like yes, a lot of people say like anti-cheat doesn't work on Linux because of League of Legends, because some games um, that do have anti-cheat don't work on Linux, but it's kernel level anti-cheat. And even that is only when the developers of those games specifically target Linux and make it not work. Other games like Dota 2, which is a pretty popular Valve game, works perfectly fine on Linux, has anti-cheat. Why wouldn't it not work? I mean, this has absolutely nothing to do with Linux or anti-cheat. It's um, some developers being lazy and using Windows kernel level anti-cheat. I don't know why, but you know. So this is in the context of Arc Raiders working fine for him, which I installed recently, works perfectly fine on Linux. Um, and but if you are wondering if your game is gonna work on Linux or not, just Google it, and that's what I did actually before buying the game. I checked Arc Raiders works perfectly fine. I bought it, I played it, works perfectly fine. I don't see what is surprising about that.
I'm going to say something kind of toxic Linux neckbeard here. Yes, killer apps are totally a thing, and I get that. But from a gaming standpoint, do you really need to play that game?
This is interesting because I suspect if we go back a decent amount of WAN shows, I think you've said the opposite in the past, but you've been probably interested and enjoying your Linux experience enough that you've been slipping now.
It's, you know what, I wrote a couple
It's
paragraphs.
Okay, let's look at this. So this is how I say it. This is something that has happened to many people, and I'm sure you have seen it on friends and family. This is a feedback loop where, for example, you start in this state. Um, let's do something like this, where you have not tried something, okay? And after you tried it, you end up in a different state. So, for example, reading books, like some people might say, like, I don't see the value in reading books, like it's boring, you're reading stuff people wrote a long time ago or whatever. And then you ask them, have you read many books? Like, what have you read? And they're like, I don't know. Like, have you read Lord of the Rings? Have you read, I don't know, Harry Potter or whatever? No. So, how do you know then that you don't like uh, reading books? So, once you do it once, okay, this is like really bad. Okay, you start to see like, okay, maybe there's some value in what is this? Okay, that's better. Um, okay, once you do this once, then you have some experience, and then you say like, okay, well, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe there's one or two books that are actually good. So you change your opinion, and then you read another book and another, and then you say like, okay, actually There's a lot of books that are really good, and then that changes your opinion and so on. And it happens like with a lot of things. It happens with exercise. Oh no, exercise is really bad. Like just do it, and then once you do it, actually it's not that bad. It's painful at the beginning, but once you get used to it, and then exercise becomes easier. Um, a friend of mine said like there was no value in learning another language. Do you know any other language? No. Like, and then once he learned English, he was like, okay, yeah, now I see the value. So of course you have to do it in order to see the value of it. So it's like a feedback loop. You start like you don't think you can go into an operating system which doesn't have your favorite game, but then once you are on it, that changes your mind and your perception, and you see things differently. How could you not? Like everything you do in life changes the way you see things. I don't know why that is surprising. Everyone who lives in life must have experienced this.
About
Interesting.
this as well. It's less that I'm enjoying Linux so much, and it's more that
I know where you're going, and I totally agree.
Microsoft is
The
actively pushing me
100%.
away.
Yep. And Microsoft is actively pushing me away,
Like-
and the Linux experience has gotten so much better since the last time we tried it.
There's still a lot of friction
Totally.
for me, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm actively experiencing friction on Linux daily still.
I had to a little bit this past week.
But
it was solvable.
but I was shooting an AMD Ultimate Tech upgrade earlier this week.
Okay, whatever. So yes, like yes, but like how are you gonna evaluate Linux if you don't try Linux? Of course you have to like obviously you have to try it, and once you try it, you see like actually I don't really need to play these games. Like um, I mean, if you really have to, of course, you can have a second partition and you can just switch to Windows and go through all the trouble of using Windows and play that game that the developers of that game don't want it to work on Linux. But most people, once they use Linux, they realize like, you know what? I don't want to go to that pain just to play that game. I'd rather just play games that just work that the developers, for example, Factorio, the developer is really Linux friendly, so I would rather just play that instead of, League of Legends or whatever. It changes your perspective. So I don't see how's that surprising. Next is um, around here.
It's a format one of the drives because I have also read. So up until now, I have kept my game drive exactly as it was when I was on Windows. Meaning my game drive was NTFS.
Mm-hmm.
But I have read that Proton struggles with NTFS a lot.
I've read that too.
So I was like, okay. I don't actually know how to pronounce it. Some people have laughed at me pronouncing it this way, but my OS.
Okay, you have read that, but what kind of problems? Like, like you're not an expert on this. Like, did you ask anybody? But okay.
Is drive is ButterFS, BTRFS.
I've heard it called ButterFS. Is that wrong?
You might have heard that from me.
I've heard BetterFS as well, but that seems probably
I just
like
thought
a
it was funny
fanboy
to call
nickname.
it ButterFS. Butter. I'm using ButterFS. Whatever. That thing is my OS drive. But I was looking into some stuff, trying to learn some things, and it sounded.
I find it interesting that I have 25 years of experience using Linux, and I just use Ext. I've used a couple of other two uh, um, file systems just to try them, but the X works fine. X4, X3, before that, and so on. This guy is using BetterFS. Like, why? You're a newbie. Like, and then further later on, they're gonna complain like, why does this just doesn't work? Doesn't just work. Sorry. Like, if you want things to just work, then just use what everyone is using, which is Ext. Just use X4. If you Google, that's like which. If I don't want any problems, which file system should I use? X4 on Linux, right? Okay, now I'm using a better FS. Like, okay, it probably works. It should work. It might be slightly more efficient. You are gonna have more features, but everything comes with a price. So I have not used it, so I cannot comment on it. But I just find it strange. Like, what is your objective? Do you want to have a good Linux experience? It seems like their objective is to get views. So they are not gonna use the boring stuff like Ubuntu or X4. He's gonna go for catchy OS and ButterFS. Like, all right, well, and then complain when he finds problems. But this is not one of those cases, I don't think.
Like for a game drive, I don't necessarily care that much about like rollbacks and stuff on,
Yeah.
like the reasons why I wanted to do it for my operating system drive. It's less important. So I went with the ext4, and trying to do that was pretty annoying. I'm just going to be honest. The process was pretty annoying. Even like I did a huge transfer off of one of the drives to another, and I just copy and pasted in the GUI, and then I noticed just like visually that like I don't think all the files are there. And then I did some diving, and like a ton of the files didn't get transferred. And I started looking into it, and the predominant answer was like, "Why are you using a GUI for this?" And I'm like, "Bruh."
All right, all right. Let's start with the basics. He says the GUI. What GUI? There is no GUI in Linux. There's probably dozens of different file system managers. So some have more features, some have less features. Which desktop environment are you using? Like the reason why I mentioned that this in my previous video. Like the reason why people, it's not that they're telling you not use the GUI. It's telling you they're telling you like if you don't want problems, then do these other things. Okay, you want to use a particular GUI. Are you using Toner? Are you using I don't even know any other um, Dolphin, I think is another one. Which one are you using? So of course the problems that you have depend on which GUI you are using. It's not like the GUI that is the problem.
It's copy and pasting files. Like, come on. Like, I can imagine there being like cooler, better ways, but like, I shouldn't have to like command line rsync to just copy and paste some folders from one drive to another.
Yeah.
You don't have to. In the vast majority of cases, any file manager that you use, you just grab the files from one side to the other and that's it. But if you are hitting a problem because of your particular setup, and we're gonna see like the asterisk that he's ignoring at this point, then all of the other things matter, and that's when using the command line might help you. But in the general case where you're just copying one file from one drive to another, should work just fine. But let's keep hearing.
Um, and then I went through that, and like, I don't love that experience, but it's fine. I can do it. I shouldn't have to. And
It's
then
funny. I actually cheated during the Linux challenge because I had to transfer some files, and they were coming off of an SD card that was just in a random device. It was in a tentacle sync, an audio recorder. And my Linux laptop, when I was on vacation, like absolutely diarrheaed all over itself, trying to read and copy it. Like it was really scary. It not only like didn't work to copy it, but it like told me it was corrupted,
oh,
and it 100% wasn't. I put it in Yvonne's laptop, her Windows laptop, and it just immediately worked, and I was able to upload it to Drive. And I suspect it's down to the file system that was on it.
it definitely could be. And
Anyway,
I
carry
had
on.
that same suspicion as well. And then I tried command line rsync. It also didn't work.
Really?
Yeah. Same thing happened. Certain files didn't get transferred.
Well, see, this is
Okay, just there. If the GUI didn't work and the command line didn't work, then it has nothing to do with the interface that you are using. The problem is something else. That should be obvious. Right there.
Something that I've always found, and okay, I'm probably going to reveal some sort of horrible ignorance that people will mock me for, but hey, it's the WAN show, baby. This is something that I have never really understood. Why is doing it through a GUI different?
Okay, so this is what I don't get. They always start with a conditional, like if A, then, and then they forget that they made an if. Like he just said that he's probably saying something stupid. He proceeds to say something stupid, and then he forgets. Like maybe what I'm saying is stupid. What did he just say?
Never really understood. Why is doing it through a GUI different?
It's not. It's not different. You copy files from the from any file manager. It's gonna work. You do it on the command line. It's gonna work. If it doesn't work from the user interface, then it's not gonna work on the command line, as we just saw. So this has absolutely nothing to do with the user interface. He just said it failed in both the GUI and the command line. So what are you talking about?
For something like file copies, why does it not just do the exact same thing behind the GUI? Why does it matter if I drag them like this or I typed a thing like this?
It was I'm
Okay, okay. Here's an asterisk. When you copy files from the user interface, the equivalent in the command line is CP, copy. If you move files from the graphical user interface, then in the command line you do MB, which is like move. But this guy is talking about rsync. Rsync is a way more complex way of um, moving and copying files and a lot of things, not just between drives, but using the network, and uh, it's much more complex. So there's no equivalent on the graphical user interface. If you're talking about copying files or moving files, there's no difference. But when people talk about rsync, that's a different thing that has no equivalent in the graphical user interface. Um, okay, let's keep listening, and then I will explain how I use rsync.
just going to address
Help me.
chat really quick. It wasn't file ownership permissions. I think it was just erroring often. I think maybe due to something with NTFS. I'm getting into areas that I don't understand.
Okay, there we go. He's going into areas he doesn't understand. That's gonna be key because right after saying this, he's gonna forget that he just said this. But this is how I use rsync. Now we are going into corner case where there are errors, which happens in Windows as well. So if you have errors like copying files, well, let's say moving files from A to B, okay, what happens is that you are stuck in a place where you don't know which files have you moved, which files have you not moved. Maybe one file was half moved or not, and it's I don't want to deal with that mess. Copy does not solve the problem because if you have problems in like 50%, especially when it's a big transfer. Let's say that you copy 50% of the files and then there's an error. Now you're gonna do the same thing and you're gonna start from 0%. So that's where rsync comes, because rsync is very advanced and it's gonna check every file that you try to synchronize, because it's not copying, it's not moving. That depends on the options that you give. It's gonna check, is it already there? Yes. Okay, then I'm just gonna skip it. So you just skip all the files that are already there, and then it's gonna check like, okay, this file is already there, but it's not complete. depending on the options, you can say like try to continue from where it left or start from the beginning. But you can do this multiple times. Like let's say the first time you do it, it errors at 20%, you do it again. Now it errors at 40%, you do it again. It errors at 70%, you do it again, and then it finished the transfer. You do it again, and then you see that okay, all the files are copied. Now I can just delete the first folder, and I know that all the files are on the other drive, even with errors. That's why rsync is superior when you have these corner case situations where there are errors, which he's having. He's having errors. People are telling him there's no graphical user interface that is going to help you with that. Use rsync. That's what they are telling him. And by the way, the same thing will happen on Windows. You can use rsync on Windows, by the way. It has nothing to do with Linux. It's having to do with the fact that you're having issues with your drive.
But the way that I was able to solve it was instead of transferring the entire drive at once, I went through and did one major folder at a time,
Yeah.
GUI, and it worked fine. I just had to like kind of baby it, and then I got everything.
Ugh. Okay.
Yeah, you didn't have to do that. You could just rsync 1, 2, 3, 4 times, whatever times it's necessary, and without even thinking about it, and it will have worked.
It just kind of sucked. I couldn't do the whole thing at once. But yeah, why? I mean, I can understand. There's a lot of little options and tweaks and things. Like rsync has a lot of control over how you want to do the transfer and stuff.
But then, like, shouldn't it probably assume?
Do you want it to ignore certain errors? Do you want it not to?
Shouldn't it probably assume the way I want it to do the transfer is to get the files from here to there, for the most part?
Yes, that's how you do it. Rsync, here, there. That works. Of course, if you want more options, you can use those options. Like for example, I want to say like verbose. I want to see exactly what is happening. Or you can do, oh, I want to copy all of the permissions. If you don't care about the permissions or the timestamps, or okay, then just don't use that. If you don't want to see the files as they are copied, then don't use that. Just rsync here, there, works. Like, what are you talking about?
I don't know. I was pretty surprised by that problem. I do suspect it's just like Linux not playing nice with NTFS.
Okay.
And then once the
There we go. I don't know what I'm talking about. I suspect it's because of NTFS, and then he's gonna forget he said any of those things.
drive was on ext4, I did not have similar problems.
Okay.
So I haven't used it extensively yet, but I suspect it's just like, okay, I'm trying to bring my Windows drives around with me still. And my initial very light amount of research being like, can I just leave everything how it was on Windows?
Yeah.
Was like, the answer was yes. And clearly it worked for over a month.
Yeah.
So it is kind of yes.
Right.
But it's more yes, asterisk, there might be some problems.
Yes, temporarily. Yes, kind of like when I downloaded that beta build of.
But what problems? He's assuming that the problem is NTFS when he just said he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know if the problem is NTFS, and then he says that there's an asterisk. There's no asterisk. You're just assuming.
Baslite with the Steam Deck experience for NVIDIA, where it was like, yes, but it probably should have had a much larger asterisk. And it does now, so no one will make the same mistake that I did.
Isaac Fig Newton says, even within Windows, I only do parts of libraries at a time. The file transfer F's up all the time. I don't have that experience, to be completely honest.
I have had that experience where drives work on Linux perfectly, but not on Windows. Right now, I have an NVMe, external NVMe, and it just doesn't work on Windows. It's just so slow, unbelievably slow. It's unusable. And actually, I used it precisely for that. I formatted as NTFS, so I could use install games and play and be able to compare like how do they work on Windows, how do they work in Linux. That's the last thing I'm using Windows for. Um, I want to create a video with that comparison and then just get rid of Windows. I'm not using it. It didn't work. The drive just doesn't work on Windows correctly. It's too slow. So I'm using NTFS on Linux. Works perfectly fine. Um,
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 it
I
depends.
know it's like a thing that can happen, but I have not ran into
With
that.
the slower your device, and I mean both the storage and compute, the more chance that it will just like trip over itself and bung itself up.
Yeah.
Windows Explorer is not the most stable piece
No.
of software on the face of the earth. I think that's a non-controversial take.
I think, I mean, he's just expressing an opinion. I think he's wrong. It's the other way around. The faster drivers that I have tried to use, the more problems. And in fact, you can in Linux you can say like use a slower speed works better generally.
So I can
and
totally
and
see
and
that.
I have to give it credit of once I finished the whole process, which was pretty annoying, but once I finished the whole process and got it onto ext4, then everything seemed to be fine. But you said your drives were dying, definitely could have contributed to the errors.
There it is. His drives were dying. Right? Actually, I don't know why. Dying. It has nothing to do with NTFS. Um, I don't know if they mentioned this before or after, but they say like people just assume that NTFS just works on Linux, but they don't actually use it. I use it. I use it. I've used it pretty much all the time. It's not the primary file system that I use, but I use it. It works fine. It. I mean, the only problem is when I mean, it doesn't really matter. Linux file systems work better, but that's work better. NTFS works the same way in Linux as in Windows, basically. The problem that this guy faced is that his drives were dying. Um, when he copied files, he had problems. But once that is done, like he's not using those drives that heavily, so he's not experiencing those problems. It has nothing to do with NTFS or the file system or anything. It's the drive. And the entire segment, he's assuming the problem is the file system, and it's not. And at the beginning, he said, "I don't know what I'm saying," and then he assumes it's not the drive, it's the file system. Why?
Yeah, I would have liked it to have been handled better though. Like for to I might have missed something, I don't know. I think what happened,
That was such a good Karen line. I'm going to use that someday.
I might have missed something, I don't
I
know.
would have liked for it to have been handled better.
Yeah. No,
I like
but
that.
what I mean by
It's
that is
quality
like when I
Karen.
did the file transfer thing, if it did error, if there was problems, it
Yeah.
should just tell me.
Yeah.
I did the transfer, but I missed 100,000 files because that's like the magnitude to which it was off.
You missed 100,000 of the shots you didn't take.
Sure. And I bet there are some graphical user interfaces that do that. But that has nothing to do with Linux. It has something to do with the graphical user interface that you picked to do that. Um, and still, we're talking about a corner case that most of the time doesn't happen.
And if it could tell me like, hey, these folders got transferred fine, these like top level folders got transferred fine, that would have been nice to know.
I wonder
too.
if the same developer went to work on Apple's transfer to iOS feature. The app.
It just misses.
Did I ever show you the screenshots from that I got? Where it was like, it's like 40,000 files and it transferred like 24 or something like that. Like,
I think you did.
Why did you even try at that point? You should have just not bothered.
But yeah, so I think using, I even heard from people who are like hyper Linux pilled and been using Linux for freaking 20 years, and I asked them about the NTFS thing, and they're like, yeah, I mean, it's probably fine, but they haven't used it because why would they?
I think
I do. I use it precisely because sometimes I have like say my father says like, hey, can you do this with it? Okay, he gives me a memory key. I plug it in. It's using another file system. Like, or if I want to like, hey, I have some files that I want to share to you. Like, here's my drive. If it's using X4, my friend is not going to be able to use that. So, of course, you have to use NTFS and other file systems now and then.
I think that's something that is easy for super Linux pilled people to miss, is that there's a lot of things that it's the curse of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
That they know and intuitively do that is best practice on Linux. And that someone did a workaround just in case you don't do it that way. But it hasn't been validated. It hasn't been tested across every distro. It hasn't been tested across every desktop environment. It hasn't been tested across every dumb user. Sorry, I should have pointed at myself.
I mean, it counts.
And it hasn't been tested across every hardware config, right?
I even think.
But that's not Linux. Linux is the kernel, as these guys already know. So if it doesn't work, if something doesn't work in, let's say, Linux Mint, okay, that has nothing to do with Linux. I mean, it's that simple. So we have to narrow down, like, what is the problem? Is the problem is Cosmic? Is it Cinnamon? Is it the file manager that you are using? Is it the package manager that it comes with your catchy OS? Or what are we talking about? You can't just say like, oh, Linux doesn't work.
I have a tinfoil hat fully on.
Yeah.
My drives were dying already.
Yeah.
I think the Linux challenge accelerated it.
Interesting.
Because
oh, come on. The Linux challenge. It's not the Linux challenge. You are moving files. That happens anytime you want to do backups. You want to move. Even if you want to reinstall Windows, you want to reformat a drive. That's gonna be put pressure on the hardware, obviously. So yes, the Linux challenge is gonna put pressure on your hardware, but so will like switching to any other operating system. I don't know if they're gonna continue using talking about NTFS. There was one other point.
Yeah, why would both die at the same time?
both started dying. The games drive is the main one having problems, but both have bad sectors. But the games drive has like 4 times the bad sectors as the other one.
But like, would anything about your file system being not Linux compatible make it thrash more?
Here's the thing: is apparently Proton doesn't play nice with NTFS, and it's the games drive that is suffering more than the other one. Now the games drive just gets.
Okay, they're doing it again. It's another conditional if, and then, okay, that's it.
Thrashmore?
Here's
about your file system being not Linux compatible.
Here's
make it thrash more?
Here's the
Okay, so that's a hypothesis. Like, will this cause that? And then
thing is apparently Proton doesn't play nice with NTFS.
okay, but that's an apparently. He's saying apparently he doesn't know, but apparently there is a problem. NTFS doesn't play nice with Proton. Okay, that's what he thinks based on what he heard. Are you gonna link these two conditionals, hypotheticals?
And it's the games drive that is suffering more than the other one. Now the games drive just gets more use and always did.
Yeah, because
So I don't know how fair this is, and I could just be
he's
completely
he's a
off.
gamer, folks. He's a gamer, ladies and gentlemen.
But there's like Slay the Spire 2.
Yeah.
So that's a smaller, slower game. So okay, that can be installed on my hard drive games drive. That's been open a lot.
Right.
So has Proton been thrashing more because it doesn't play nice with NTFS?
That's another hypothetical.
Literally don't know.
I have literally no idea, but I
You have no idea. Good.
have I have a thought. Have you pulled the smart data? I have. I haven't dove really deep into it. I just know that there are bad sectors. The Linux NTFS driver is reverse engineered and barely works. The stuff Proton tries to do with it will 100% cause file system corruption.
Says on Hikage.
Yeah.
In
So
chat.
that
He's wrong. He's wrong about that. Completely wrong about that. They're just reading the opinion of some guy that doesn't know what he's talking about.
was not when I did my not enough research, and I'm accepting that. I basically Googled, can I keep my Windows NTFS drive
Yeah.
on Linux to play games? And it was
Right.
like, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you can, and that's exactly what I'm doing. In fact, it's the other way around. I created an NTFS partition to install games to play on Linux.
Okay. And you know what's really funny is because as much shit as I got for settling on Pop! OS after Googling it and asking an LLM, I actually did find that. I knew that.
Yeah.
Which is why I did a completely fresh install on every single one of my systems and didn't try to keep any of my games drives.
Yeah.
Even though I do have one.
And to be clear,
I was just like, I'm not going to use this because... And... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it was fine
Except when it wasn't.
for a month.
How much did it cost you?
It was fine, except when the drive started to fail, which has absolutely nothing to do with the file system. Okay. So this is a quick search. I did a quick search because I actually didn't know that. So I looked, and then there's this page using an NTFS disk with Linux and Windows. Okay. These instructions cover configuring an NTFS disk containing Steam games, which is what I did and which is what they did, that was previously used in a Windows environment to work with Proton on Linux. Okay, that was not what I did. This allows a user to use the same files to play games on both Windows and Linux without needing to reinstall games for each operating system. So this is not the same thing already, because they think there's a problem with using Proton with an NTFS partition. It's not a disk, but the problem is only when you are using both Linux and Windows at the same time. And they actually go on and explain what are the potential problems, and one of these is like some files. Here it says the most common issue is a colon characters in file names that Proton creates on the NTFS disk. So that's going to be different on Linux and Windows because they use the NTFS file system differently. So, and this is a potential problem. I personally haven't had any problem, but I actually don't use it on Windows that much. But anyway, so that is the problem. The problem is not using NTFS on Linux. The problem is using NTFS on Linux and then going to Windows and using the same NTFS disk for Steam games. So you're talking a very, very, very particular issue that you don't understand. And you already accepted that you don't understand. So how on earth could that be? Would you assume that it's somehow trashing the drive? Like, don't do that. Don't make assumptions based on something that you don't understand. And you probably didn't even Googled it and found this the description. You probably didn't even do that. You just assumed it because you read it somewhere. Don't do that.
Maybe a drive. Well, no, the drives were already going down.
okay.
The drives already had bad sectors. It was like, I just didn't think it was quite time to replace them yet. They're really big drives, so them having a few bad sectors is like not the end of the world. It might have accelerated it. I was going to have to replace them anyways. And like it did function. So they were right about it functioning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Also, another thing that I did this week, I talked about how I might want to do this. I removed my desktop environment and installed a new one.
Yeah.
Okay, finally. So that's a new topic. I really don't understand why do they spend so much time talking about something that they don't know. Like there's absolutely no value in this. You can use NTFS. You can use it to play games on Linux. Works perfectly fine. Linux doesn't have any problem using NTFS. And if your drives are not failing, then you're not going to have issues copying files. It's that simple.
So I came across a funny thread somewhere. I forget why I was even reading about this, but it was like, can we stop calling them distros? A distro is just, the desktop environment, and it's this, and it's a package manager, and it's this, and it's this, and they're all interchangeable anyway, and blah 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 blah. And it's like, okay, Captain Pedantic. I mean, you want to go full pedant.
It's not about being pedantic. It's about you not understanding what a Linux distribution is, and it's very very clear to any not even experts. I think anyone familiar with Linux knows that. To give a quick example, if you like Cinnamon, then you can use Cinnamon in any distribution that you want. You don't have to use Linux Mint to use Cinnamon. So they are conflating the Linux distribution with the desktop environment. You can install I don't know what Ubuntu comes with by default. You don't have to, if you want KDE, you don't have to install Kubuntu. You can just install KDE on Ubuntu, and you can do that with you can you can use Cosmic Desktop in CatchyOS. You can do anything that you want. The distribution is just like the default, what comes by default. After that, you can do anything you want. Of course, some distributions are, for example, Hyperland is going to be an exception that maybe Ubuntu is not going to work really well with the Hyperland, and for that you are going to want an Arch Linux-based distribution, but Hyperland is an exception. In general, GNOME, KDE, XFCE, Cinnamon, whatever you want to pick is going to work on all distributions. So that's what people are trying to tell you. And these guys refuse to listen and then always conflate Linux Mint, Cinnamon, Cosmic, Pop OS. Like, no, that's not how it works in Linux. That's that's what you need to learn. It's not a monolith like in Windows.
Then you kind of have to come full circle around to, what even is the Linux operating system? It's a desktop environment and a package.
First of all, there is no such thing as the Linux operating system. There isn't one. You could argue that there are many, that Debian is a Linux operating system, that Android is a Linux operating system, that Ubuntu is a Linux operating system, maybe, but there is no the Linux operating system.
Manager. It's all these things. So like, you wouldn't have, you can't just call the Linux kernel the Linux operating system. In order to be an operating system, it has to have all these things. So no, Uno reverse.
Is that true? It doesn't need a desktop environment.
Okay, it doesn't need a desktop environment.
This is where the
does it need a package
pedantic stuff comes in. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Okay, hold on. What does it need? It's going to need something.
No?
So now we're coming all the way back around.
No! Defeated.
Amazing. But yeah, that
Yeah, you think about it 2 seconds and you realize that your own premise breaks down immediately. Like, yeah, you cannot make these kind of generalizations with Linux. And like, you can use that Linux in a Raspberry Pi that doesn't even have a screen. There's no monitor. There's no desktop environment. You can use Linux in Windows with I forgot what is it called. Is it WST? I forgot. You can use Linux in Microsoft Azure server. Like that's Linux. What desktop environment? Like, come on.
It's funny because like
Oh,
fighting through NTFS was really annoying,
right.
and then I came out on the
WSL, right? Windows Software, something like that.
other end, and I haven't used my computer since I did that enough to like really know. But it seems like it's actually a lot better in a few ways, and now my hard drive is just like dead.
Cool.
But oh well, it was already dying. It is what it is. Replacing my entire desktop environment was so easy. I was actually just like stunned.
Why? Why are you stunned? That's exactly what people just told you. That distributions are all interchangeable. You can use any desktop environment that you want on any distribution. They just told you that, and then you're surprised that actually, yeah, I could change my desktop environment easily. Duh.
It was wild.
Well, I know uninstalling it is easy. You could do that without even meaning to do it at all.
But yeah,
I can. I mean, maybe you're not that good.
Oh wow, yeah, that's fair. So I got rid of Cinnamon, and it's
Yeah.
like gone. I completely removed it.
Yep.
I kept Hyperland, but I'm not actively really using it, and I installed KDE.
Cool.
And I am now even more strongly of the opinion that if you just want your thing to be smooth and to work, you should probably install Mint and Cinnamon.
There you go. Why are you lumping a mint and cinnamon? You can use mint and in any cinnamon in any distribution that you want.
KDE is sick, and I'm happy it's on my desktop, and I think I'm also happy it's not on my laptop. Mint,
Why are you contrasting mint with KDE? You can use KDE in mint. Like, man, it doesn't matter how many times people try to help these guys. They just refuse to uh, see what's under the hood.
and Cinnamon is just such. I'm like not surprised. It's interesting because it doesn't really get talked about that much. Like if you look into the what should I run right now on computers, everybody is going, yeah, screw you, Dan. Everybody is going, oh, run like Bazite or Kashi
Yep.
and run, KDE on top of them and blah, 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 blah. And then we look at the Steam hardware survey and like a lot of it's Mint.
That's because you don't know where to look. This is distrowatch.com. What should you run? What are the popular distributions? CatchyOS, number 2, Mint. What are you even talking about? Like this guy said, Bazite. Bazite maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Like, but today, like, no. Like, what it would be a better one? Like Endeavor OS. There was another one. I forgot. Anyway, Endeavor OS is more popular than Bazite. You just got stuck in the past.
Yep. An Arch.
Arch is up there, and Arch is Kashi, and SteamOS.
No, Catchy is Arch. Arch is not Catchy.
Yep.
Which is where a ton of that is coming from. But I think just the like ease, man. Like I really have enjoyed KDE so far. It feels like the correct choice on my laptop. It feels like the correct choice to go along with Kashi. Sorry, correct choice on my desktop.
Yep.
It feels like the correct choice to go on with Kashi. The things that I'm trying to do on my desktop, KDE has been fantastic. I really like the experience. But like doesn't feel like the if you want it depends on what you're min-maxing for. If you're min-maxing for less problems, you just kind of want things to work. You want the tools to just kind of be there. You want it to feel like what you're used to when you come from Windows. Mint.
If you're a newcomer, that's what you should do. So why aren't you not using Mint or Ubuntu or any or why are you using ButterFS and but whatever. Like obviously you are aiming um, for views, for reactions, not really for a smooth experience, but up to you.
And cinnamon is just a fantastic combo. It's honestly just amazing. My laptop never has any problems. It is completely rock solid, heart touching. It's amazing.
Yeah, who would have thought that if you go for what most people are using, you don't have any problems. Just use Linux Mint, Cinnamon, X4. Yeah. Um, and yes, formatting, if you want to all your Steam games, I actually am gonna do that. I'm gonna format that drive to X4. But if you wanna keep using NTFS, it should work. Yeah. So hopefully the next time they're gonna try to listen a bit more what people are trying to tell them and not arrive to illogical conclusions that they themselves realize that are probably wrong. Yeah, that's it.